Hi, welcome back. This is our last video for July, and I'm talking about piecing the quarter moon flowers. And this is a curved piecing lesson, and for some of you, you've done lots of it, so you may skip this and just jump right in and piece. And for others of you, this might be a little brush up, or you might want to hear a couple of my tips. And for some of you, it might be brand new. And so if you're brand new to this, don't worry about it. I'll show you some tips to make it really easy. Don't be afraid to do it, and they'll come out fine. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is after you've cut your curves, which we talked about before, you need to take away 4 of the number 8s and 4 of the number 11s. You won't be using these, so these are extra, so just take them away so you don't get confused. And then if you look at the picture, what they tell number A's, which is the 8s on the top and the 11s on the bottom that look like that, you need to make 8 of those, and then you're going to make 4 with the 11s on the top and the 8s in the middle. So you need 4 of those and 8 of these. You don't want to make extras, okay? Only make what you need. All right, that's my first lesson. So you do need to cut down a ½ inch off of each side of the arc. So hopefully you've kept the pins in. And so I just keep the pin in. I have my 4 still layered that I originally cut out. I'm going to just take my ruler and cut off a ½ inch on this side, and then flip it over and cut off, make sure that it's even here, and cut off a ½ inch on this side so that I know that I'm cut off, because otherwise it will not piece correctly and you'll have a few problems. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 ways of piecing. One that's just straight up pinning like they tell you, and the other one where I use the Soline glue pen. And that's how I did it. It turned out a little bit better for me. So anyways, you do have to crease the center of the arc and the quarter squares, circles, so that you have the center marked. And you can do it with your finger or with your iron, either way. I can kind of see it with my finger press, so I'm going to just match those up. And the nice thing about the batik is there's no right or wrong side, so I'm just going to stick a pin in, and that matches up my center a little bit. So I have the center matched up, and you have to match up each end. And I try to turn it so that they're square, okay, rather than, like this. Like if you matched up the point, but one side was this way and one side was this way, it won't sew that well. So you want to make sure that they're sitting, so the sides are sitting straight. Okay, and I'm going to stick a pin and hold those together that way. And then I again do the same thing on this side. Okay, so they just have you marking the center and the sides, but I also take, and I like to stick one more pin between the center and the end, kind of right in the middle, to hold it, because I feel it makes it a little bit easier sewing. And I like to do it on that side too, if I'm only pinning, okay? And then you're ready to sew. And I didn't stick, like usually if you're doing a really tight curve, you have to trim in here, scissor trim, but it's not that tight of a curve, so I didn't have to do it, and I didn't get any puckers in it. But if you do find that you get a pucker, then you might want to take your scissors and do a little tiny bit of notching in there. But and that's only if you find that you got a little pucker in it. I didn't really need to. Okay, so then I'm just going to stick this underneath, and then you do have to watch that you keep these sides edges so that they're matched together. So I do go fairly slow, and I watch my pins, and you just kind of have to hold your finger and move those edges around. And and I'm just kind of going slow and then just kind of turning it and making sure that I'm not sewing any edges in together underneath. And I just keep on watching to make sure that the edges are lined up. It's not a fast process. And just making my way around. Okay, and you got one done. And then you'll pull the pins out and take a look and hold your breath. And hopefully it turned out okay. And so I take a look and go, yeah, okay, oops, there's one more pin. It's like, oh, all right, turned out pretty good. And then I usually press where it wants to go, and it kind of wants to go to the big part, so I'll take a press on here. Excuse my back for just a second. And take a look at it. Make sure that I'm happy with how it looks. So it's like, oh, all right, I just pressed a pleat into it. So it's like, all right, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. So that's one way to do it. The other way that I did it is I took and I used a glue pen. And for me, that was a little bit easier because I didn't have to watch the bottom so much. So again, I marked the center and pinned it both ways, the center and the outside. And then I love my Sew Line glue stick. I use it for a lot of different applications, and sometimes meetings seems that I have a hard time matching or paper piecing or other applications. And so I just put a little bit of glue here, and this is a water soluble glue, and of course we have them at the shop. And so instead of pinning, I just stick the edges together and they just stick. And then I just put a little bit more glue there. So you can see I'm not really gluing very much, just a little bit on the edges. And I glue it all the way around. So that way my edges are really nicely stuck. And put the cap back on. And then for me, you can see I can kind of whip through this a little more cleanly, but I do watch the bottom to make sure that I'm not catching any folds up in the bottom as I go around the curve. But it's a little bit easier for me. I feel that my curve is a little bit cleaner. And there's my curve, which I'm pretty happy with. And then you'll press it out. And then you have one more step to do, which is cutting it down to a 6.5 inch square. So they tell you to take a 6.5 inch ruler, and I don't have a 6.5 inch square, but a lot of you may. But I actually have a 6.5 inch block lock, so I can use that. They're telling you to see where the 5 inch part of the ruler is and lay it right there and there on the curve. I don't know how important that is, but you know, maybe it is. So that's what it would look like. There's my 5 inch mark and my 5 inch mark, and just square it up. So this is this a 6? I think it is a 6. I should check that, shouldn't I? Yeah, it is. You know, this my left cannot check it. Yeah, it's 6.5 inch. What?
Well, 6.5.
Yeah, okay. 6.5 inch. So there's my 5, and there's my 5 on the curve, and on the curve. So I would just make sure it's square, and then cut it, and cut it, and then turn it, and then cut it down. So if you don't have a 6.5, I wouldn't like run out and buy one. I would just mark 6.5 off on your ruler and see where the 5-inch mark is and get close. Because I don't know that it's that crazy. But anyways, there's one of your curves. And here's another one. So I would cut that down. And when you look at the layout, it's 2 of the lights together. So it's one here, and your rose block from page 1, way back in January. So you have them left, and one would go here, this would go on the other side, and then your darker one would go down in the center here of these curved blocks. So hopefully that helps you in making your curved block. And of course you can always email me or reach out to me if you have any questions of making this block, and hopefully that was helpful to you. And we'll see you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.